We'll do a little bit of introductions just to get things started this evening, again, as folks are joining us, and then give a little bit of a quick overview of how the evening's program will run. For those of you, again, just joining in, my name is Dan Shanley. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission here at Colgate. Here is my home, as is the case for our panelists tonight, but we've been starting to be back on campus a little bit and are really looking forward to our students coming back. We have a really robust plan to do that safely and to make sure that our students can enjoy the most Colgate experience that we can provide them in this fall. So again, I'm delighted to have more than 200 students registered, 200 students and families registered for the program. We can see that number continue to climb. I'm going to turn things over to Gina to just introduce herself really quickly.
Hi, I'm Gina Solis. I'm Senior Associate Dean and Director of Financial Aid. And I too am in my home, but I'm in disguise with my background overlooking beautiful James B. Colgate Hall from one of our rooms in our library. Welcome and glad you joined us this evening. Thank you.
And Chelsea.
Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Santiago. I'm an Assistant Dean of Admission and the Office of Admission with my colleague Dan. I'm so excited to be able to speak with you guys. I'm also a recent Colgate alum, class of 2019, and I'm also in my home, which is actually in the town of Hamilton. If I had a better view, I would definitely show you guys how beautiful it can be here, but I'm gonna kind of be in the background answering any questions and helping out with the Q&A, but so excited to be able to have you guys all here joining us.
Perfect. And what we will do in just a moment is I'll switch things over on the Zoom side to speaker view just for the purposes of our recording. So that's a little bit easier for those that will be joining us after the fact. Our presentation tonight is really designed to be a culmination of the programming that we've offered throughout the summer. We've called our webinar series This is Colgate, and we've really hoped to give you an example and an experience of life at Colgate through our academics, our community, what the village of Hamilton is like, a day in the life of our students. So all that programming has really sort of built week by week. You've likely attended or some of our Monday programs. And that culminates in this program tonight, which is really designed to be informative for you and to tell you how you can get that for yourself and how you can join this community, both through our admission process and our financial aid process. I'm going to start off with about 10 minutes of presentation just about the application process and really the holistic admission process. We'll talk about certainly application processes, testing requirements, and things like that. But we'll spend a good chunk of time talking about what applying to college is going to look like this year. For those of you that are seniors, you've experienced an upheaval in your academic progression. And we want to really stress the importance of what it means to be applying to a college that views that holistically and within the context of everything that's happening in the world. And then we'll switch over to the financial aid side of things. And we'll have Gina talk a little bit about our financial aid process, some of our programs, and how you can make sure that a Colgate education is affordable for you. Just logistics, I feel like, we're at the movies and I'm going to tell you where the exits are and things like that. Don't exit just yet, but if you do have questions, we're going to take advantage of the Q&A feature. At the bottom of your screen, you should have a Q&A button. Feel free to put your questions in that box. Throughout the evening, we will be responding to those questions either via text. So if it's something that we reply to, or we can reply via text to, either Chelsea, myself, or Gina will be doing that for you. But we're also going to save a fair bit amount of time at the end of the program to make sure that we can answer those questions as well. So feel free to, again, put those questions in the Q&A box so that we can keep track of those that are answered and asked. If you do have a specific just logistical point or something like that, you can use the chat. Those messages will come to us as panelists, but for the good of all of our attendees, we know that most people will have similar questions to you. And we want to be able to share those with all the attendees as well. So using the Q&A button is going to be your best bet for that. So I'm going to go ahead and just switch things over to our speaker view here. And what that will do is get us started with the admission part of our process. And so we're talking about applying for college in a period of time that is unlike anything we've all seen before. There are absolutely changes in regard to testing. There are changes in regard to academic progression. There are changes, every school is doing things very differently than they did in the previous admission cycle. And there are a lot of questions and a lot of concerns about that. So what we really want to stress to our seniors who are really just beginning that application process, Colgate's application started on August 1st, is that Colgate will be flexible. And we've committed to that in several different ways. Really all the way from the top. Our VP for Admission Financial Aid has signed on to an agreement in joining his colleagues, over 360 of which, who represent sort of the chief enrollment leaders at some of the nation's preeminent institutions. And that guidance is actually, it's come out from Harvard University. You can take a look at it. And basically it reiterates to our students the things that we value in the admission process. And they may be surprising to many of you. Certainly we value academics and GPA and things like that. But more importantly than that, Colgate and these other institutions value who you are as a person and value the contributions that you can make to a place like Colgate. There are plenty of metrics that we can use to determine, which students might fit within our testing ranges and things like that. And all of that really goes to the side when we're talking about such a disruption globally to what we could have expected in terms of evaluating our students. So I've gotten a lot of questions from students in my region. I should have mentioned I work with students from the greater Boston area, and I've gotten a lot of questions from students who have said, how can I stand out in a process where my school has gone pass fail, or my school has gone to fully remote learning, things like that. And what I wanted to stress is that there are plenty of ways to still do that. And they range, right? So this could be from helping out with your family's needs. There's certainly been some implications for jobs and things like that. A lot of students have needed to take on additional responsibilities at home. We care about that. We care about the ways in which you are continuing to pursue your academics outside of what your school might even offer, or if your school has gone to a remote form of learning. What are the ways in which you are continuing to push yourself academically to take those challenges, to take this environment which has been thrust upon you and make the best of it? That's how we're really evaluating our students, our current Colgate students, and we're encouraging them to make the best of a challenging situation. And that's what we're going to be looking for in our applicants this year. In terms of logistics, as you likely know by now, Colgate has determined that we will be test optional for all applicants who are applying to the fall of 2021. That's a big distinction and a big difference from how we've operated in the past. And students have asked, what does that mean? Are you really test optional? And what are the ways in which testing will be evaluated in the process? And the answer is yes, we are test optional. That does not mean that if you decide to submit your testing that we will weigh that more heavily or not, or if you decide that you're not able to submit testing or that you don't wish to, that there is in some way going to be a disadvantage for you in our process. That will simply not be the case. We evaluate every single applicant holistically. And again, that means that we're evaluating your academics. That does not mean specifically your GPA or your rank in class. It's a combination of factors. And again, particularly in cases like this, if you don't have a junior year GPA or a spring semester of your junior year or fall semester of your senior year GPA, that is not going to be a disadvantage to you. Our blanket statement is that if it is something beyond your control, if it is a school-wide change beyond your control, we in no way will hold that against you in the application process. What that does mean, though, is that we're looking for you to showcase your talents, to showcase your passions, to showcase those things that you care about to us in different ways. And there are plenty of opportunities to do that, particularly in this admission cycle. One of the options is your letters of recommendation, those people that know you well, your academic recommenders, your guidance counselor. All of those professionals know about you, they know about your talents, and we'd like for them to share that with us. They can know very specifically about some of the changes that have been adapted at your school or some of the responsibilities that you've needed to take on in this time, and can speak very, very personally to those, more so than we would know, maybe based on a transcript or something like that. So we definitely would really look to, we really would like to hear from those professionals about those experiences that you've had. Another really great opportunity is your essay, your college essay, your personal statement. is really your chance to paint a picture for us beyond what is in your academic portfolio in terms of your numerical credentials. Your essay is a chance for us to get to know who you are, what you care about, what things you want this world to be for you, and the ways in which you plan to do it. If you're taking action, if you've started a club, started a business, all of those are really great ways to shine in your essay and really showcase to us who you are and the contributions that you'll be able to make to our community. Additionally, this year, Colgate has changed our supplement. We moved to a supplement last year that was not part of our common application or coalition application, but really was a couple of questions specific to Colgate that highlighted some of the important things that were, or some of the things that were important to us as an institution. And we've expanded that even further this year to help with flexibility. Again, that is our primary goal for this application cycle. So we have provided 3 questions. We will provide 3 questions to our applicants. Those questions are optional. And I want to be very clear that you can either choose to answer 1, 2, or 3, or none of those questions. Again, none of this will be, none of this will look negative in your application should you not be able to complete those, or should you choose not to. But what they do is just give us an opportunity to learn more about you from a holistic sense. Those questions are available on our website. You're welcome to take a look in our applicant checklists on the apply page. So just colgate.edu/apply. I'll pop that link into the chat in just a few minutes so that you can see those. And again, really just an opportunity. We wanted to provide that chance for our students to give us a little bit more information about their experience, about who they are in a time when the application itself, we do use the common application and the coalition application, might just not have the space available to you for you to really describe and make sure that we know as we're reviewing those applications, everything that you want us to know about you. So do take advantage of those if you have the time and you have the interest in responding to those. Again, they are optional, and our main goal is to provide that flexibility for you. In terms of other application requirements, we are still sticking with our letters of recommendation, as we mentioned, to academic recommenders, as well as your guidance counselor. We've already addressed standardized testing. We are looking for your high school transcript as well. Typically, your counselors will be really good about sending those to us as part of the application. And again, we have a really, really good relationship with the guidance counselor and the school counselor community, as well as working with our CBO partners to make sure that we're fully understanding of the circumstances that are leading to those changes on the transcript. Our entire team is going through training right now so that we know exactly what to look for on transcripts. Where traditionally we'd be able to calculate a GPA really quickly, we know that's going to look different, and it's going to depend on the school. So we're going through a lot of training right now to make sure that all of our team members, anyone who's going to be reviewing those applications, is on the lookout for those little changes in progression, in course availability, in terms of grading and things like that. Typically, schools will provide school profiles to us, and we have those as part of our application review when we're looking at the materials. But again, we're not going to be relying on those. We know that school counselors have a lot on their plates and may not have the opportunity to provide an updated profile given everything else that they're working on. So please do know and do recognize our commitment to making sure that a human is going to view every single one of those transcripts. And we're going to be really keenly looking out for those changes in progression and those changes in course availability to make sure that we can have a full comprehensive understanding of your academic credentials. Overall, again, that message is really flexibility. What we do want to stress to our students, though, is that Colgate is a rigorous experience, and we want you to be as prepared for that rigorous experience as you can be. So we will absolutely be looking for those students who, in the face of this challenge, have continued to challenge themselves with the most rigorous offerings that their school provides. We would never, again, hold a student from a school that offers 20 AP courses against a school that offers 1 or 2 and say, why did student B not take as many AP courses? Again, it's going to be within the context of your school and within the context of the decisions that your school has had to make to be accommodating in this pandemic. But again, from an advice perspective, we really are encouraging all of our students to seek out those opportunities, whether remote or in person, that can best challenge you and best prepare you for the rigorous academic experience that Colgate will offer. In terms of application process and timeline, wanted to just kind of work through a little bit of those notes. Again, we mentioned that Colgate does rely on the Common Application and the Coalition applications as our primary means of applying to Colgate. So we do use online applications, certainly. Those applications are both up and active. They were turned on as of August 1st. Our deadlines to make sure that these are clear for folks as well we have two processes at Colgate, an early decision process and a regular decision process. Early decision, as many of you are aware, is that binding application. That is for students who have done their research, they've been participating in virtual events, and you know that Colgate is the right place for you. Early decision 1, that deadline is November 15th of this fall. And our early decision 2 and regular decision deadline is January 15th. So again, those deadlines, early decision 1, November 15th, early decision 2 and regular decision, January 15th. We do offer the opportunity for students to change their application from a regular decision application to early decision up until March 1st of your senior year. Again, you must still meet that deadline of January 15th, but that provides students who may not have the chance to visit this fall, or maybe looking to do a little bit more research into their opportunities past that November 15th deadline to still commit to Colgate a little bit later in the process and still express that interest in Colgate. And that will, again, that you do have until March 1st of your senior year to make that switch to early decision. All that you need to do is submit to Colgate an early decision agreement, and that will basically trigger us to move your application to that early decision pool. A lot of students will ask, is one favored over the other? Not really true at Colgate. We view early decision 1 and 2 as both strong early decision applicants, and we view them both equally. Colgate is certainly interested in admitting students for whom Colgate is their first choice. We get a lot of questions about demonstrated interest, if we evaluate demonstrated interest in our process. We do not. So in order to sort of make up for that and really find those students for whom Colgate is their first choice, we do rely pretty heavily on that early decision process. Again, we would never encourage students to make that decision if you weren't fully ready for it and weren't fully understanding of those requirements. But we do make that an option. And certainly, like I said, Colgate is interested in students for whom we are their first choice. An early decision is a way to make that known to us. With your early decision agreement, we certainly encourage families and students to do some exploration of costs as well. And I'm sure Gina will talk about our cost calculators that we make available to you. When you receive your early decision, if you are admitted to Colgate, you will also receive your initial financial aid offer at that point as well. We do want you to be able to make that decision with the best information that you have available. So really quick rundown, and I do want to make sure that we have time. I see a lot of questions coming in, so I want to make sure that we have time to respond to those as well. So I am going to turn things over to Gina to talk a little bit about the financial aid process at Colgate for our seniors applying this year.
Thank you so much, Dan. So today, I hope that the brief overview that I'll be providing to you will give you a better general understanding of the types of financial aid that are available and the steps that are required to apply for financial aid. And I know that the financial aid process can seem daunting, so hopefully I'll help simplify and explain some of the basics. I think one of the first things that I should mention, and something that we're very proud of, is that Colgate meets 100% of a student's demonstrated financial need. And so you might ask yourself the question, well, what is my demonstrated financial need? And we talk about a relatively straightforward formula. The cost of attendance at Colgate University minus your family's expected family contribution equals your demonstrated financial need. And I'm going to dive in deeper to that formula and sort of explain how it's calculated and how it works. But for the first part of that equation, let me talk to you a little bit more about the cost of attendance. So our estimated cost of attendance for the current 2020-21 academic year is up on our website. And if you logged onto the website, you could see that it includes allocations for both billable costs, so direct educational costs like tuition and fees or housing and meals, as well as an allocation for indirect educational expenses, so costs that we know that every typical student will have. A good example of that would be books and supplies. So again, we take that estimated cost of attendance and then we subtract your family contribution to come up with your demonstrated need. Time and time again, I will get questions about the expected family contribution or the estimated family contribution and how we come about calculating that. So we basically are using answers that you provide on the CSS profile. That's one of 2 financial aid applications that domestic students will complete in order to apply for financial aid at Colgate. And using the answers that you've provided on the CSS profile, we take into account a number of factors. So we think about the size of your family. How many people are in your household? How many students are in college? So if a parent has more than 1 child in school at a given time in an undergraduate program, we do take that into consideration. You're answering questions about parent and student income, and then also about the assets that you have. When we take all of that information that you provided, we know that it takes a certain minimum amount just to maintain your household and run a household. So we think about those typical family living expenses, whether that's for housing, food, clothing, transportation. And then we also take into account the fact that if there are multiple students enrolled in college or who might be expected to go to college at a future date, that you'll need to be saving a little bit for the younger siblings. So if the student who is on their way to Colgate is the oldest in the family, we don't expect that the entire family savings will go to that first sibling, that more has to come for the other children as well. And then we also take into account the fact that parents are saving for retirement. So any retirement savings that a family reports, we're kind of using that for statistical purposes and also just to make sure that people aren't making errors when they fill out their applications and start to list their assets. So in other words, retirement assets are not looked at all as I think about this EFC formula. So again, we collect the information about your income and your assets. We take into account non-discretionary household expenses. And then what's left over, a certain percentage of that is calculated as a remaining amount that could be used for educational expenses. So again, getting back to my normal initial formula, cost of attendance minus EFC equals demonstrated financial need. So once we have the results from your CSS profile, and we'll know what our estimated cost of attendance is for the 21-22 academic year, we then know what a student's level of financial need is. And we fill that financial need in an award offer with Colgate grant, if you're eligible for a federal program like a federal Pell Grant. We also might offer work study, and work study are part-time jobs, usually on campus. And we might be filling some of your demonstrated financial need with student loans. But an important thing to remember at Colgate is for families whose total income is under $125,000, we actually have a no loan initiative or a no loan packaging formula. And what that means is we will fill your demonstrated financial need with grants like the Colgate grant or Pell Grant, or if you happen to be in New York State and qualify for something like TAP, the Tuition Assistance Program, your financial need will be met with grants and work study. So the no loan initiative, again, is for families whose income is under $125,000. You won't be automatically offered a loan as part of your financial aid to help fill your need. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to borrow. So again, when we talked about this estimated family contribution, some students have elected to borrow, or even parents have borrowed educational loans to help cover some of their portion of that family contribution. So it's not prohibited. You are still allowed to borrow if that's one of your financing options that you choose. When we send out financial aid notices, Dan actually just mentioned this, we send out the admission and aid notices both at the same time. In order to be able to render a decision on both admission and aid, of course, we need all of your materials. So I wanted to mention that when a student applies for admission, you'll have access to an applicant portal, which will list, in addition to the admission requirements, also all of your financial aid application requirements. I made mention that domestic students fill out the CSS profile. If you're tuning in as an international student, we will also have you fill out a CSS profile to apply for financial aid. And then domestic students, there's an additional form called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And we definitely need you to fill that application out purposefully to fill out an application to apply for federal aid. So again, the CSS profile and the FAFSA are the two primary applications for domestic students. When you submit those applications, we'll acknowledge receipt on the portal that I referred to. And then some students' applications get selected for a process called verification. And so what that means is, in addition to the FAFSA and the profile, additional documents might be requested at a later date. So we need students to continually monitor that portal, and we'll send out missing information requests as well. But be sure to supply us with any of the application materials that are needed by our deadlines. For our early decision 1 candidates, the deadline is November 15th. And then for our regular decision and early decision 2 students, that's January 15th. So as you check your portal for all of the information that's required, if by any chance you're selected for verification and we need other things like a tax return or a household worksheet where you would list all of the members of your family, we will ask you to fulfill those requirements by submitting documents onto the College Board iDoc portal. That's a secure platform where you can upload all kinds of sensitive data, and it's safe and sound and secure to do it that way. We definitely don't want you to email documents like that to the financial aid office. So we want for you to protect your personally identifiable information. That's sensitive information like your social security number, birth dates, or other account numbers. So again, if we require anything else on the financial aid side, other than the FAFSA and the profile, we'll send you an email to give you access to the iDoc portal so you can securely upload those materials. I think something important to know is that Colgate University has a net price calculator on our website. We actually have 2, and one of them is super straightforward to use. The other one asks more questions. The other one looks a little bit more like the actual CSS profile itself. But there's something called the My Intuition calculator, and that calculator asks you to submit answers to 6 quick questions. And really by doing that, you don't even have to pull out your tax return. You can literally just read the questions and use your gut to answer those questions. And if you provide accurate information on that, you'll get a really good idea of your estimated family contribution and a pretty good range of, an idea of the range of financial aid offer that you might be eligible to receive. I think I barely took a breath when I said all of those words, but I was thinking about this presentation earlier today and in the weeks and days leading up to this presentation, and I was thinking, gosh, if I was in an elevator or standing at a bus stop or just walking across campus and I happened to see a family on tour and I only had a couple of minutes, 1 minute to give you advice on the financial aid process, I would definitely, the best advice I would give is for you to meet all of the deadlines, make sure you fill out all of the materials that are requested and do that by the deadline. That's very important. But then also, especially in this environment that we're in, it's important for you to let the financial aid office know of any special circumstances that you might have. Now, I mentioned the FAFSA and the profile, but I didn't make mention that those applications ask you to report 2-year-old information. So you basically pull out an old 2019 tax return for the upcoming 21-22 academic year. And we fully recognize that your 2019 taxes don't necessarily reflect the situation that you're in now. If there was no such thing as COVID-19, I probably would use that same elevator pitch or 1-minute discussion on campus to tell you the same thing. If you ever have any special circumstances at all, or if the financial aid applications just don't allow you to tell your whole financial story, you're invited to send us an email and let us know about your situation. The CSS profile actually does have a short section on special circumstances, so be sure to take advantage of that to let us know if there's something unique happening with you, or if potentially the questions that you're answering on those financial aid applications no longer reflect your current situation. But we're super nice and super straightforward, and we will try to answer any questions that we can throughout your entire financial aid application process. And then, of course, this evening as well. So I might turn it over to the others to help moderate some of the questions that have come in.
Sure. Thank you, Gina, for providing that way more comprehensive overview than I think people were looking for. So that was really helpful. And we still got some questions that came in about both the application process and the financial aid process. So we will sort of tag team to make sure that we can get through as many of those as we can. And I've been scrolling through those while Gina was presenting. So I'll try and help tee some of those up for you, Gina, so that you don't need to feel like you need to dig back through. And we did get some good application questions as well. Again, for those of you that were holding your questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A box. We did get a lot of questions about Colgate in general, the Colgate experience. And though we wanted to, though we certainly are happy to talk about Colgate, we really wanted this presentation to be focused on the specific process, the financial aid process, the application process. Definitely would invite you to take a look at some of the previous webinars that we posted this summer that really dive into the more experiential parts of Colgate. What is student life like? What is the food like? What do our students do on a daily basis? All of those recordings are available at colgate.edu/visit. That's sort of the short URL that we are putting in place, even though those visits might be virtual. Definitely take a look at some of those previous recordings to get a better picture of the Colgate experience from the student perspective, what the family experience is like, to make sure that you can learn a little bit more about that. But again, we really wanted to make sure that this presentation was focused on a little bit more of the process side of things so that those questions could be answered. We had a lot of questions about how do I know if I should send my SAT or my ACT scores or if I shouldn't? And it's a great question. And we know that question is certainly causing a lot of angst as it normally would in previous years. And what I really want to stress is that we in the admission office and Gina's team in financial aid, just as she mentioned, we are not gatekeepers. We are not the ones that you have to get through to get what you are looking for out of Colgate. We are your resource, and we are your advocates in the process. Every student from around the world has a regional dean in our admission office. Those are available if you go to Colgate's page and just click on Contact Us under the admission heading. You'll be able to see a full listing of all of our admission counselors and the regions for which they represent. Again, that question is really going to depend on you and how you feel that test represents your academic ability. We've published, we went back and forth on this. We did publish our median SAT ranges from the previous year just to provide some context. But again, we really did want to encourage and express that not submitting an SAT if for whatever reason, if you got there on that Saturday morning and the heat was too high, or the calculator batteries died, and it just wasn't a representation of your best work, feel no apprehension about choosing that option on the Common App or the Coalition application to say, you know what, I'll be not submitting my test scores this year. That will not have a disadvantage to you. And if you'd like to talk a little bit more specifically about your situation, please feel free to reach out to your regional admission counselor. We're happy to have those conversations. We are having those conversations on an ongoing basis with all of our students. And we really want to be available to help you navigate those considerations and those questions. Just a point of clarification logistically, I saw this question as well. You will have the opportunity on your application to choose your testing plan, whether that is to submit your tests or to not submit your tests. Whether you took the exam last year and you added Colgate's code, we will respect your answer on the application. So even if we have your test scores sitting in our database because you sent them to us last year, if you tell us on the application that you would like us to not consider those, we will hide that from all of our review. So we have those scores in our database. They will not be available and visible to our admission counselors when we're doing our review. So that answer on the application is really going to be the response that dictates how we evaluate your test scores. And you will have the opportunity to change that. You just do need to let us know about any changes to that preference for you. scrolling through a couple of questions here. Gina, one for you, just about financial aid and if you should, if you can apply for financial aid if you're applying early decision, and if the financial aid packages maybe change at all, whether you apply via regular decision or early decision.
That's a great question. So our financial aid packages, we will be exactly the same using that formula of our cost of attendance minus your EFC equals your financial need. So regardless of if you apply early decision or regular decision, you will get the same financial aid package results. So there is no preferential packaging for regular versus early decision or vice versa. So you truly will get the same type of financial aid offered with either of those two decisions.
Perfect. Question about thoughts regarding the COVID question on the Common Application. So both the Common Application and the Coalition Application have added a free response field for students to tell us about how the pandemic has impacted either their academic progression or their extracurriculars and things like that. Feel free to use that space. If there is something that is not better answered in one of our supplemental questions or your personal essay, definitely use that space to give us that context. We understand that a lot of the clubs and organizations and community service and volunteering that you were used to doing over the past 3 years may have certainly changed in the spring of your junior year, over the summer. And if you want to let us know about that, we encourage you to do that. Again, we are very carefully looking at each application for those changes in progression, particularly this year. But some of that context will definitely be really helpful for us. So use that response, that free response field on the application to let us know about those extenuating circumstances, so that we know when we're reading that application that if we see that the participation ended in March, we know why. So use that to your advantage. And again, I would certainly advocate for using those supplemental questions as well as an opportunity to help round out your application. Another question for Gina from Olivia: is the financial aid calculator online accurate? I know you talked about both of our platforms. Can you talk about, how close they get?
Sure. I mean, the real key to the success is the accuracy of your responses. And so it asks questions like, what is your total household income? And so a student may not necessarily know what exactly their parent's income is, but a parent might, and they might just have that gut feeling. They know, oh, right, my salary is about X. So it's not like you have to have your tax return memorized to fill it out. But if you have a pretty good idea of what your finances are and you answer the questions accurately, you'll get a pretty accurate result. Gets a little more complicated if a family, let's say they're a business owner, and we know that business tax returns can get very, very complicated very, very quickly. But if you're, a run-of-the-mill kind of a person like me, a W-2 wage earner, and you don't have a real complicated financial situation, your result will be fairly accurate.
Got a lot of questions about how Colgate evaluates international applicants versus domestic applicants. And very similar to the commitment that Gina talked about on the financial aid side. Colgate, we certainly do understand that there are additional requirements in terms of you might need to get a visa, things like that to come to Colgate. But in terms of our application process, Colgate's looking for the best and the brightest wherever they may be in the world. And Colgate knows, and we know as we're reviewing applications, that international students have tremendous experience and tremendous background and stories that they can share to enhance the diversity of our campus. So we do not evaluate them in a different process. We certainly understand that there are differences in terms of transcripts and how grades are evaluated. I'll give you a little insider knowledge. We have an incredible resource in our our coordinator of international recruitment on our team, as well as the team that she manages in our group. And we have a big binder. It's a digital binder now. We're certainly about sustainability. But we literally have every country listed, and we have the particulars about how that country manages their grading system. And we use that resource as we're evaluating international applicants. All of our admission counselors do evaluate international applicants, and we use that like I said, as a really great resource, so that we're really understanding, again, the students in their application in the context of their school, of their country, of those grading policies that country offers. What we do look for is for students to make sure that you have provided translated materials and things like that so that we can have those available to us. But again, all of the policies and practices that we talk about for students regarding financial aid availability, 100% commitment to meeting demonstrated need, things like that. Those apply across the board. And we don't have sort of a virtual boundary that treats international students in a different way or a different process than our domestic students. A couple of other questions here that are coming through. Question about need blind versus need aware. Colgate is a need aware school. We do evaluate the family's financial situation, as Gina's mentioned in her team as far as the financial aid award, but certainly in the application process as well. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that for those students that we feel will be a great fit for Colgate, finances are not a barrier. The converse of that is what some other schools need to do or have available, which is where they will gap students. So you might be admitted, but there's a gap between what your family can contribute and what the school is offering to you. So it's a different philosophy of looking at it. At Colgate, we're really focused on making sure that we can support financially all of the students to which we offer a space in Colgate's classes. And so we are need aware. But again, that really is in service of making sure that we can meet the financial requirements of our students to ensure that that will not be a barrier to them through their entire time that they're performing academic work at Colgate. Logistical question about GPAs, weighted versus unweighted. At Colgate, we do try to evaluate our applicants on a somewhat even playing field. So we do consider the unweighted GPA. That is, if the school provides a weighted GPA, we will recalculate that to make sure that we have sort of a normalized standard there in terms of GPA. Again, that said, we know that schools are calculating GPAs very differently this year. And we don't quite know what that's going to look like. We haven't gotten transcripts yet. So we'll have a much better understanding as those come in. But again, please know that we are aware that there will certainly be changes. Again, we did publish our average admission stats for last year, just as a baseline so that students could have that available to them. But again, don't feel that those are minimums or things like that. We really do evaluate our applicants holistically. Couple of questions in here, Gina, just about changes to families' financial situations in the recent couple of months and things like that. I know you talked about using prior year taxes and things like that, but any other advice just in terms of how families can make those changes known to us and to your team?
Sure, absolutely. So two things that people should definitely do. Use the special circumstances on the CSS profile to let us know of what your circumstances are. There is a character limit to what you can provide in there. So the explanation only goes so far. So you're always invited to send an email to FINAID, that's FINAID, @colgate.edu after you've applied for admission. And that way we can link your, we'll have an ID number behind the scenes for you. So we can record and keep the email that you send to us that just gives you a little bit more room to type your explanation. The other thing is we're humans and we're reading every single application, and our interpretation of what you explained to us might not be exactly what you tried to explain to us. If we've misunderstood something and all of a sudden you receive a financial aid offer that you think, gosh, this just doesn't add up, reach out to us. So if something is surprising, let us know even after you receive the financial aid offer, just to make sure that we didn't overlook something. So never be silent. Always reach out to us, pick up the telephone, send an email, and we'll be sure to make sure that we've read everything about you and know everything about your financial situation to take that into account.
And Gina, I'll give you another one that gets a little bit more specific, but I'll try and generalize a little bit more. Can you just broadly talk about some of those cases where there is custodial, non-custodial parents and how Colgate evaluates those living situations?
Absolutely. I did not cover that. So the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, in cases where a student's parents are separated or divorced, the student would only need to fill out parent financial information on the FAFSA for their custodial parent. And in this case, the definition of custodial parent is the parent with whom the student lives the most. We have had circumstances where students, maybe it's like every Saturday, they go from one household to the other. So they're splitting their time 50-50. It's not even one day more in one household over the other. So they often have a difficult time defining who their custodial parent is. So if truly you don't live with one parent more than the other, then the custodial parent in that circumstance is the person that provides the most financial support. But again, oftentimes when parents are separated or divorced, maybe students live with one parent more than the other. So on the FAFSA, that's their custodial parent, and that's whose information should be reported. On the CSS profile, however, in that circumstance, we would actually collect a CSS profile from both households. So the custodial parent and the student would fill out one application, and then the student with their non-custodial parent would fill out a second application. And if their biological parents have remarried or have a new domestic partner, you would fill out the financial information for that whole household, and then be sure to explain your special circumstances and let us know more about all of the dynamics of that household or each household's circumstances. So divorced or separated, both fill out a profile, but only one FAFSA.
Perfect. We had a question, this was from Eileen, about the number of students choosing to defer for the upcoming year and how it may affect the number of admission officers that Colgate can offer. It's a really great question. We've certainly had a lot of conversations with our partners and colleagues on the other side of the desk, the school counselors, to talk about this. Colgate did see a higher number of students choosing to defer their admission this year than we have in previous years. And what we don't have yet is the goal for our class of 2025. There's a lot of factors at play there. And that number is determined by our Board of Trustees in consultation with our finance team on campus, our president's cabinet. And again, a lot of factors in that. Things like, how many students are coming back to campus? What is the space available on campus for residence halls and things like that? So that is a question that we don't have the answer to yet. I will say that though we had a higher number of students choose to defer, it wasn't an amount that would seriously impact the number of admission offers that we'd be able to talk about next year. We certainly do intend to keep our class sizes about the same. So at this point, again, without a specific goal, I can't offer that target number, but we do anticipate just on the sheer fact that we're not building any new residence halls or things like that this year, that our incoming class would be about the same size. And so I wouldn't expect, given that we did have a few more, but not astronomical numbers of students choosing to defer their admission or anything like that. And again, so while we don't know the full impact of what those deferrals will be, I wouldn't anticipate that being a massive implication for the number of offers that we are able to grant this year. A couple of questions from several students about what happens if you apply early decision and are not admitted as part of that early decision pool. Colgate has a couple of options as we're reviewing those applicants. We may either admit you, we may deny your application and not continue to pursue that application for Colgate, or we may offer you a deferral, a chance to have your application deferred and reviewed as part of our regular decision pool. So those are the three options that come from our early decision process. We typically would not go right from early decision to our wait list unless we're really towards the end of that early decision 2 process. But again, so typically you either will receive from us an admission letter, a deny, or a defer letter to the regular decision process. Another question about transfer students. Our transfer population at Colgate is pretty small, but again, we don't evaluate those students really differently than we do for the first year process. Certainly we know that their academic experience is going to be a little bit different. So we are looking for transcripts from the colleges that you've attended, things like that. But transfer students are absolutely welcome to apply for financial aid. And again, the process is pretty similar, where you would know about your financial aid offer at the time of admission. So again, there is no prohibition on students to apply for both admission and financial aid if you are a transfer student. Residency policy at Colgate. We are a residential college, so Colgate both offers and guarantees housing to students for all 4 years. That is again true for domestic students, transfer students, international students. We really are pretty flat across the board on that. We encourage and we really enjoy and feel that that residential experience is something critical to the Colgate experience, which is why we tried so hard and are doing everything that we can to make sure that is a safe and viable option for our students this year. So yes, absolutely, we are a residential campus and we do guarantee that housing for all 4 years. The quick question here, CSS profile fee waivers. Gina, could you tackle that really quick?
I can. So for domestic students who qualify for SAT fee waivers, you'll automatically be eligible for a CSS profile fee waiver. There are certain limitations. The College Board, who oversees both, will know your income level. I think generally even people that qualify for certain types of benefits like SNAP or food stamps and those types of benefits would automatically qualify. Unfortunately, over the last few years, whether it was hurricane season or wildfires, a variety of different natural disasters, the College Board actually even takes that into consideration. And based on the zip code of your permanent residence, if you happen to be in a location that was impacted by some kind of a natural disaster like that, those types of things would be automatically processed as well. But in general, those that qualify, that fee will automatically be waived as you're filling out the application.
Great. Question about percentage of students coming to Colgate from private versus public schools. We're pretty evenly split. We do have great representation from both independent schools as well as public schools. We certainly don't have particular limits. We don't look to fill students. We are not evaluating students based on the type of school that you come from. We are more interested in what you did there. So in regards to the academic rigor that it's available to you and things like that. Again, really going back to evaluating the students holistically within the context of the academics experience that they are part of. We have a lot more questions that came in, more than we have time to answer for today. What I do want to do is just take the last few minutes to talk about how you can get those questions answered, what resources will be available to you. I'm going to go ahead and just pop in. I know that I promised a few minutes ago a couple of links, and I'm going to put those into the chat now. Colgate.edu/apply. On the left-hand side, you'll see both early decision and regular decision of that page. And actually, I just sent that to all of the panelists, which is not going to do any of our attendees any good. So let's try that again. Colgate.edu/apply. On those checklists, you'll see the requirements for our application for admission. And below that, you'll also see those optional supplements and the questions. So if you are looking to kind of get a leg up and thinking about some of those questions and how you might respond, those are available to you there. I'm also going to just pop in the link to our regional admission counselors. So that is colgate.edu/contact-us. That page will get you to our regional admission counselors page, where you can find the regional dean to whom you can reach out to with more specific questions if it's something that we weren't able to get to here tonight. And I believe, Janie, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but your homepage is colgate.edu. I think the short code is just FinAid?
I think you type the whole words financial aid /financial aid.
Perfect. And that will get you to Gina's team in financial aid with those resources that she mentioned, specifics about the application process, those cost calculators that can be really helpful as well. I want to just wrap up with sort of a call for folks to take the next step with us. Certainly, again, those applications are open. We talked about the deadlines earlier in the conversation. We know a lot of folks are looking to find ways to, again, learn more about Colgate as you continue your search. So definitely would refer you back to our previously held webinars. Those are really great resources to learn a little bit more about the experience. On the visit page, which I also just popped in the chat, you'll also see our opportunities for actually visiting campus, whether that happens virtually. So our interviews at this point are happening virtually. Our information sessions are happening virtually. We do have limited opportunities for self-guided tours. Those are all done within the context of our health and safety plan. The specifics of that, the particulars are available on that website. But we are open for families to take a self-guided tour of campus. Just for folks to be aware, at this point, our students will be undergoing a mandatory 14-day quarantine when they arrive back to campus, really this next weekend in compliance with our state regulations. So at this point, all of the buildings are not open to visitors. So all of the buildings, except for the admission office on campus, where we do have restrooms, maps for the self-guided tour, things like that, that is available. However, all of the rest of the buildings on campus are restricted access, and we do ask that you maintain social distance, that you wear a mask, all of those things, and remain outside of our buildings if you choose to take part in that self-guided option. Again, we hope to be able to offer more robust visit experiences as we get through that initial quarantine period, and as our Emergency Operations Center, the team of which has done an incredible job of keeping us safe and making really robust plans to make sure that we can continue to be safe. Gina, thank you to you for your work on that committee. But that will be, all of those will be available on that visit page in terms of our current offerings. And as soon as we are able to offer different offerings or offer different schedules, we will share those out via email to all of the students who are on our contact list, and they'll be posted to that visit page as well. So thank you to Gina, thank you to Chelsea for helping answering a lot of those questions in the background. I apologize that we weren't able to get all of them, but our team in admission and Gina's team in financial aid are here to be your resources through the process. There's never a dumb question. There's never too many questions. We really want to make sure that you are able to have as much of that information available to you as you can as you explore your college options. And we absolutely hope that that search brings you to Hamilton, New York, and exploring Colgate. So thank you so much for your time this evening. Check out those previously held webinars for more about the Colgate experience, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you throughout the process. Have a great night.